Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act or the GLBA. Let's begin with an overview of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act or the GLBA. Now the GLBA is also known as the Financial Modernization Act of 1999, and it includes provisions that protect consumers' non-public personal information. And here you want to remember the terms non-public personal information. That's what the GLBA protects. It protects consumers' non-public personal information. Now, relevant components of the GLBA include the following: the Privacy of Consumer Financial Information or Regulation P and the FTC Safeguards Rule. Now, the Privacy of Consumer Financial Information or Regulation P is regulated by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau or the CFPB. On the other hand, the FTC Safeguards Rule is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission or the FTC. Let's begin with a discussion of Regulation P or the Privacy of Consumer Financial Information Regulation. Now this regulation, Regulation P, does three things. The first of which is that it prohibits pretexting, and pretexting refers to obtaining an individual's personal information through false pretenses. So let's do an example of that. An MLO who impersonates an applicant and contacts their bank to obtain non-public personal information would be an example of pretexting. This is obtaining individuals' personal information through false pretenses. The other thing that Regulation P does is it requires privacy policy disclosures, and there are two privacy policy disclosures that Regulation P requires. The initial privacy notice, which must be provided when the consumer becomes a customer. And here, a consumer becomes a customer when they engage in a continuing transactional relationship with a financial institution. The other privacy policy disclosure required by Regulation P is the annual privacy notice, which is provided annually to the customer. The third thing that Regulation P requires is that the financial institution must inform applicants of their opt-out right. So the GLBA notes that customers have the right to limit the sharing of their information to non-affiliated third parties. And the initial privacy notice and the annual privacy notice both must disclose to the applicant of their opt-out right. Remember that the opt-out right is the customer's right to limit the sharing of their information to non-affiliated third parties. Now, Regulation P, or the Privacy of Consumer Financial Information, is regulated by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the CFPB. And you want to remember that because the FTC Safeguards Rule is regulated by the FTC, whereas Regulation P is regulated by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And one way to keep this straight is to remember that any regulation with a letter is regulated by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the CFPB. So the Privacy of Consumer Financial Information is also known as Regulation P. It has a letter, that letter is P, and therefore it's regulated by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This applies to other regulations as well. So Regulation Z, or TILA, the Truth in Lending Act, is also regulated by the CFPB. It has a letter, that letter is Z, and therefore it's regulated by the CFPB. Now let's talk about the FTC Safeguards Rule. Now, the FTC Safeguards Rule requires financial institutions to put forth a written security plan that protects the confidentiality of consumers' information. The objectives of the written security plan are the following. First, to ensure security and confidentiality of customer information. Second, to protect against anticipated threats to the integrity of that information. And third, to protect against unauthorized access to that information. Importantly, you should remember that the FTC Safeguards Rule is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC. And this concludes our module on the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act.